Hello, everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most unexpected and fascinating developments in the ongoing Ukraine conflict. In a surprising move, Belarus has announced that it is ready to mediate peace talks and help bring an end to the war between Russia and Ukraine. Minsk is stepping into the spotlight with a new diplomatic tone, signaling a potential shift in Eastern Europe's geopolitical landscape. This development could have major consequences for Moscow, Kyiv, NATO, and even the global balance of power. For years, Belarus has been seen as one of Russia's closest allies. President Alexander Lukashenko has maintained strong ties with Vladimir Putin, often echoing the Kremlin's rhetoric and even allowing Russian forces to use Belarusian territory for military operations against Ukraine. But now, Lukashenko's sudden push for peace mediation raises questions. What has changed? Why is Belarus, once accused of being a silent partner in the invasion, now calling for negotiations and an end to hostilities? The answer lies in a combination of economic pressure, shifting alliances, and Belarus's own survival instincts. Belarus finds itself in a delicate position. On one side, it depends heavily on Russia for energy, trade, and security. On the other, the ongoing war has pushed Belarus further into international isolation, deepening sanctions and economic troubles. Lukashenko understands that his country's future stability depends on avoiding being dragged even deeper into Russia's conflicts. By offering to mediate peace, Minsk might be trying to rebuild its global image and signal to both the West and Kyiv that it wants to play a constructive role. This move could also be a strategic way for Belarus to reduce Western sanctions and open limited diplomatic channels again. At the same time, there are signs that Lukashenko is carefully distancing himself from Russia's failures. Moscow's war effort has faced setbacks, with Ukrainian resistance stronger than expected and Western military aid increasing. Belarus, which shares borders with both Ukraine and NATO members Poland and Lithuania, doesn't want to become the next battleground. Lukashenko has repeatedly stated that Belarus will not send troops into Ukraine unless directly attacked, and now his peace initiative seems like a continuation of that stance. However, not everyone is convinced of Minsk's sincerity. Many experts argue that Belarus's mediation proposal could be part of a broader Kremlin strategy. Russia might be using Belarus as a diplomatic tool to create the illusion of a neutral peace broker, while still maintaining influence over the process. After all, Belarus is not known for independent foreign policy decisions. Most major actions are closely coordinated with Moscow. But even if this is the case, the very act of Belarus calling for negotiations might suggest cracks in the alliance, or at least growing unease within Lukashenko's government about the direction the war is taking. The timing of Belarus's offer is also significant. As the war drags on, fatigue is setting in on both sides. Ukraine continues to push for territorial integrity, while Russia faces international pressure, declining morale, and growing internal dissent. The humanitarian toll is enormous: cities destroyed, millions displaced, and tens of thousands of casualties. Against this backdrop, any sign of diplomatic initiative can attract attention. For Belarus, stepping in as a mediator could be an attempt to show relevance on the world stage and rebrand itself as more than just a puppet of Moscow. Moreover, Belarus shares historical and cultural connections with both Russia and Ukraine, making it a geographically and politically logical candidate for mediation. The country hosted the original Minsk agreements in 2014 and 2015, which were intended to stop fighting in the Donbas region. Although those agreements eventually failed, they remain a reference point for peace negotiations. Lukashenko's latest statement seems to invoke the memory of those earlier efforts, presenting Belarus once again as a potential platform for dialogue. International reactions to this announcement have been mixed. Western nations remain cautious, questioning Belarus's credibility as a neutral actor given its prior support for Russia. Ukrainian officials, while not dismissing the idea outright, have emphasized that any mediation must be based on Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial rights. Meanwhile, Russia's response has been notably reserved, with the Kremlin neither fully endorsing nor rejecting Belarus's initiative, perhaps waiting to see how the international community reacts. Another layer to this story involves domestic politics inside Belarus. Lukashenko faces growing discontent among Belarusians who oppose his authoritarian rule and the country's alignment with Russia. By positioning himself as a peacemaker, he could be attempting to soften his image domestically and internationally, presenting himself as a stabilizing leader rather than a dictator. It's a risky gamble. If the mediation attempt fails or is seen as a trick, it could backfire, reinforcing his image as Putin's loyal subordinate. Economically, Belarus is feeling the pinch. Sanctions have severely limited trade with the European Union, its second largest trading partner before the war. Inflation, shortages, and declining exports have all taken a toll on ordinary citizens. Lukashenko knows that economic recovery is impossible without easing tensions with the West. Acting as a peace mediator could offer a way to reopen limited economic dialogues and perhaps negotiate partial sanction relief. Still, Belarus's proposal raises major strategic questions for Russia. If Minsk genuinely wants to facilitate peace, it could signal to Moscow that its closest ally is losing confidence in the war's long-term prospects. For Putin, who relies on Belarusian loyalty, that would be a worrying development. Yet, if Belarus's peace talk is merely symbolic, it could still serve Russia's interest by testing the diplomatic waters, gauging Western willingness to negotiate while appearing open to dialogue. Regardless of the underlying motives, one thing is clear: Belarus's involvement adds a new dynamic to the Ukraine conflict. The war, which began as a clear-cut confrontation between Russia and Ukraine, is now seeing unexpected players stepping forward. From China's earlier peace proposals to Turkey's mediation efforts, now Belarus joins the list of nations positioning themselves as potential peace facilitators. Each country has its own interests, but collectively, these moves suggest growing international impatience with a war that has dragged on for nearly 3 years without resolution. The real test will be whether Minsk can gain the trust of both Kyiv and Western powers. For Ukraine, any peace process must involve security guarantees and the restoration of its territorial integrity. For the West, a Belarusian-led negotiation must be genuinely independent, not a shadow of Kremlin manipulation. Achieving that balance will be extremely difficult, but if successful, it could mark the beginning of a broader diplomatic thaw in Eastern Europe. As for ordinary Belarusians and Ukrainians, the hope is simple: an end to war and a return to normal life. Whether Belarus's mediation offer is a genuine step toward peace or a calculated political move, it reflects the growing realization that endless war benefits no one. The coming weeks will reveal whether Minsk's initiative gains traction or fades as another symbolic gesture. But one thing is certain: the world is watching closely. If Belarus can play even a small part in de-escalating the conflict, it could change not only its own destiny, but also the course of European history. So, what do you think about Belarus stepping in as a mediator? Is this a real chance for peace, or just another political maneuver? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates on global events and geopolitical developments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.